to record this session. I just started recording now. The reason that we're recording is more than anything so we have an opportunity to go back and to look and discover things that we just may have missed in terms of questions that you ask or things that come up, so that we can be thorough in our process of debriefing after all these meetings are completed. So again, thanks for being here. The other thing I do want to do is I'm actually going to ask everybody, can you please mute yourself just so that we don't have the background noise and it's easier for everybody to hear. From the beginning, this entire process has been focused on our mission as a school, and particularly the piece about how can we be responsible and care for one another, care for our community, and use this as an opportunity to really put our focus on health and welfare of our teachers, and by focusing on our teachers, knowing that we're also making sure we're protecting every student and every person who comes into our building and is part of our Aquinas family. So that really has been a focal point of this process. We've spent an incredible amount of time making sure that we're putting in place a plan that is going to address all of the things that are significant and important to making sure that we're effectively addressing all the pieces of educating the whole child. We are more than just chemistry and math. Chemistry and math are super important, but at the end of the day, our mission is really about who we put into the world, and we want to make sure that we take the care to do that. So this plan has involved a great number of people and input from all corners of the Aquinas family, as well as meeting the guidelines of the state and the CDC in terms of creating an opening plan that is going to be safe and going to create a healthy environment. I want to reiterate that
town hall meeting. I'm trying to turn it way down, but it's.
I want to reiterate.
The voice will not be.
We can hear you.
Yeah. I want to reiterate that again, our plan has been submitted to the New York State Department of Health and to the New York State Department of Education and has been approved. So I'm very proud of that fact. And the team of people that are on this slide here have really done an incredible amount of work. And a lot of the work has also been done by subcommittees that have broken out and addressed things, everything that you could possibly imagine, from how many sanitizing wipes we should be ordering to making sure that we have good and safe protocols for safe distancing during things like fire drills and lockdowns. And so I'm grateful to this group of people, and they represent all corners of our community: parents, board members, members of the community, doctors and lawyers, teachers, school administrators. So I'm very, very grateful for the work that this group has done. So as you're already aware, our primary plan is that our students be able to return to campus for full-time instruction, here on our campus. And we've also provided for families who choose an opportunity to opt in if they believe that that's a safer or better option for their child. And so we'll talk about the opt-in as well, but I want to go through the pieces that make our building and our plan really focused on safety, and what I want to bring to that is it's also very much about our school culture, and it's also very much about addressing the social emotional welfare of our students and of our teachers, and how we provide, even for students on distance learning, to make sure that we are including them in our community, to make sure that they feel very much a part of what's happening at the school, and that we are addressing the needs, the anxieties, and also the hopes and the successes of everybody in our community. We know that that's really important. We also want to make sure that no matter what, our students are prepared for what comes next. We're a college preparatory school, and that is our focus for every child from the time they come into Aquinas until the time that they leave. And and just because we're in this situation doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to successfully prepare students for what's next. The primary principle of health and safety, and we know that it works, is the wearing of masks and the social distancing piece. Masks work, and there's a ton of research that shows that masks work, and from our perspective, masks are even a central piece to how we approach our mission at Aquinas, right? It's not about just what they do for us and what we know about ourselves, but it's a great opportunity for us to show how we are responsible and how we care for our neighbor and the other people in our community. And we can't possibly know everyone's circumstance. We know that we have people from vulnerable populations that are here in our school community. We want them to be safe in our school, and masks are a way that we can do that. The expectation is that everyone at Aquinas will wear a mask all the time. There will be exceptions made for mask breaks that are built into the day. So we're still working on exactly how mask breaks will work. I can tell you that during mask breaks, students will be seated and not up moving around. We all have adolescents and teenagers, and we know that it is almost impossible for them to maintain a 6-foot social distance if they're standing up. So we do want to be sitting down because we know we can have a little more control. We also know it's going to take time to get used to it. All of our classrooms have been reorganized to meet the requirement of having 6 feet, at least a 6-foot minimum social distancing between all desks, and to give the teacher a distance of about 8 feet in the front of the classroom in every space in our building. Our classroom spaces vary with the social distancing occupancy from about 12 to 18, depending on the size of the classroom. We've done a lot of work with our schedule to make that work so that we're putting the larger classes in the bigger spaces. We're also using other spaces differently. So spaces like the auditorium are being used for some classes during the day. The cafeteria is being used for some big periods in the morning and in the afternoon, before and after lunch periods. We have taken our 3 largest teaching spaces in the school, the black box theater, the band room, and the chorus room, and we have turned them into, or are creating, our 6th grade spaces there. We've done that because those are our largest instructional spaces in the building, and they give us the opportunity to have our 6th grade all together, to have 22 of them in a classroom at a time, and to have everyone be socially distanced. We believe that that's really important, especially in that 6th grade, and we can have a self-contained environment where the majority of the other teachers can push into that environment. They have separate hallways, their lockers are separated, so we can really sort of isolate that 6th grade. Because we know with the older kids, we can create that isolation differently as well. By using other spaces, by creating an effective overflow space. In the cafeteria, students, all the seating in the cafeteria and the field house and the student union where they would eat lunch has all been socially distanced so that they can sit and eat without wearing their mask. Again, the only thing we're asking them is if they stand up from their seat that they wear a mask. And we're going to be working with them to make sure that we can start to create that environment. I know that everybody's seen our mask our mask stuff. We've been put it in my e-blast on Monday. These are the actual masks that we're going to be providing to our students. As soon as they come in, we will also make them available through the bookstore for you to be able to purchase an additional mask if you want to do that. Our students do not have to wear an Aquinas mask to school. They can wear another mask that they bought at the store or a mask that you've made at home. The only real requirement that we have is that there be no writing on the mask unless it's a mask issued by Aquinas. Certainly patterns are acceptable. I think about the masks we made. My daughters have masks with flowers on them and stuff like that. Also, if you have a team logo, I'm a Bills fan. Dr. Cook's a Bills fan. I might have to wear a Buffalo Bills mask if we, as we get into the football season, hopefully that we're going to have. I have said in the other meetings, Patriots mask might get you in trouble, but otherwise, that we want to encourage them to show. I'm starting to think of masks like ties, right? They can show our personality a little bit, and we can have some fun with them. When it comes to screening, last week the governor talked about testing in schools, and I want to be really clear, and I have since gotten clarification on that from the state and the county health department. When the governor was talking about testing in schools, he's really referring to what we have called screening in our plan. Testing for K-12 schools in New York State is actually going to be reserved to physicians and to the testing sites that have already been determined, in our county. So the urgent care center is the free testing site at MCC. When we're talking about screening, every Aquinas family will get, every parent will receive an email in the same e-blast type format from me. It will come from me. Every single morning, you'll receive it at 5:30 a.m. It will have a hyperlink in it to a daily questionnaire that we're asking you to complete. Complete a questionnaire for each of your children. And to do that before they leave home to come to school, whether you're driving them or whether they take the bus, before you leave home, to please complete the questionnaire. When they arrive at school, they will be screened for temperature again. And what you see here is a temperature screening device. Dr. Cook, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the devices were actually purchased from a local security company. So the camera that's affixed to the top of the screen is it's just an HD camera. It's not a laser. It's not harmful in any way. It has facial recognition software. So ultimately, once kids are scanned through, it'll actually recognize a student or person that comes in the building that's been through the system, even if they're wearing a mask. So it'll basically recognize from eyeline, and for Mr. Mancini and I, our hairline. But it'll recognize them. It then basically takes their temperature using just your wrist. You'll actually put your wrist by it. It doesn't touch anything. It scans your wrist. It's within a ½ degree accurate, either up or down. Once a student registers a temperature of 100 degrees or higher, that's when we would pull them aside and they would actually spend some time going through another screening with our nurse, who will actually be stationed down by door 7 each morning. So with the data, though, because it's sold by a security company, we've looked into the data is secure. It's not shared with anyone other than the person that's monitoring that in the main office, and really just looking for any abnormal reads that are above 100 degrees.
Right. And so student arrives at school and they do their temperature check and it's fine, and they move on, go to their locker, and go to first period. We will be randomly selecting students each day to do a secondary screening. The secondary screening just means we're going to ask those students, let's say we just choose every 20th student who walks through the door. Those students will go down to the nurse and will be re-asked the questions in the questionnaire, and she will take their temperature a second time. And that's really just so that we can have additional data on collecting, to just as an extra safety precaution. And because it'll be random and every day a different number, and kids always come in the building at different times each day, over the course of time, we will have very strong data in terms of sample size as well, of the student body. If a student presents with symptoms of COVID-19 before school, don't send them. If they get here and they're screened, or they get sick during the day, the nurse will be handling the screening and the determination of whether or not the child actually is exhibiting symptoms of COVID. And then, given that, the child will be sent home. Once you're sent home from school, the child must be seen by the primary care physician and must have 2 negative COVID tests before they can return to school. So the physician would sign off, the student would have 2 negative COVID tests, and they can return to school. If a student has a positive COVID test, it's a 14-day quarantine for the child, and perhaps everyone in the household. And then also the doctor would sign off, they would complete the quarantine before they could return to school. Now, I share that with you. I also want to share with you that once a child is sent home from school, or an adult is sent home from school with possible COVID, if a test is positive, all the contact tracing and determinations about return to school or isolation for other people in the building will actually come from the Monroe County Department of Health. Aquinas will not be making those decisions. We'll be cooperating with the health department to complete contact tracing, and we'll be working with the health department in terms of, and they will ultimately determine who, if anybody or everybody, would then be required to additionally isolate, or that further testing might be necessary, or if there's any type of shutdown of our school or change from our current plan to either a hybrid plan or a distance learning plan, right? So those decisions will actually be made by the health department. I will certainly be in direct contact with them, but they will not be decisions that are just made by us. They'll be made by medical professionals. When it comes to cleaning and disinfecting, we're taking this very, very seriously. Obviously, hand washing protocols we have installed in every single classroom and throughout the building. Hand sanitizer stations, so that students and staff can be continually washing their hands. We will make sure that we're continually keeping parents up to date on what's happening. And we've taken lots of measures with our cleaning company, Janitronics. And actually, Jim Coleman, who is a Janitronics regional representative, is joined us today for our meeting. And Jim, I'll just let you speak a little bit about some of your cleaning protocols.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. As parents, you need to know that your school is going to be cleaned and sanitized. So that would be really, really important to me if I was sending a child of mine back to school, which I am not. You also need to know that our staff has been fully trained, and they know and understand all the protocols. Aquinas is one of many higher educational institutions that we clean all across New York State. So we have got a number of protocols in place, and our staff has all been trained on how to handle that. The other important thing to know is that we stand ready if there is any positive COVID situation that comes up. We can come in and mitigate that problem very, very quickly. The other thing to know is that we've redeployed some of the staff so that your school will have someone in the building all day long that can clean what we call touch points and punch up restrooms and keep things as clean and sanitized as we can with a building full of students.
Thank you very much. So, and again, I want to just touch on the antiseptic piece. right? That is actually something that goes on these high touch points. And while there are some cleaning protocols with it, is also self-cleaning and has a lifespan of 90 days. And so we'll be installing that in these high touch points right before school opens, and we'll continue to update it throughout the year as necessary. A clean environment, we know, makes a big difference for helping keep everybody healthy. And we're grateful for the work that Janitronics has done over the summer and will continue to do. The cleaning protocols, though, also impact right now our dismissal times. We want to make sure that everybody's out of the building at a reasonable time until we get a real handle on how quickly the building can be completely sanitized each day. And so we're going to continue to ask for your patience as we do that. We've also upgraded all of our air filtration and ventilation in the building. Again, a clean environment is about making sure we have the cleanest air possible. I'm going to ask Dr. Cook to talk about that a little bit right now.
Yeah, so right now Aquinas, prior to our upgrades, actually each classroom has their own individual heat pump. So they're already circulating air from the outside, but we've even added an additional upgrade. Each classroom will have an air filtration device that will increase the air changes within the room. The air filtration device will actually, it's 99.99%. I guess they just can't say 100, but it's efficient down to 0.007 microns. And so Crosby Brownlie is our servicer for that. I mean, they could have said any number. I would have had no idea what that meant if I didn't see this diagram to show you. I think everybody's very familiar with a HEPA filter. So a HEPA filter is probably what you have in your home. So essentially what we're doing is we are filtering the particles down even smaller. And so I'm going to have Mr. Mancini actually go to the next slide. What that's comparable to is we'll almost have like a clean room environment here at Aquinas, not only in each classroom, but also all the common spaces will have these systems by the company's, the brand, I guess, is Healthway, if you want to look it up. And it's a disinfecting filtration system, so DFS. It'll provide an extra 2 air changes an hour in a given space, so it's going to increase our air filtration 20 to 30% in a given space throughout the day. It is 40 times more effective than a HEPA filter. And again, we're working on not only cleaning the surfaces and making sure that those are sanitized, but also the air. It'll be cleaner air than probably anywhere a student's going to be outside of this environment. So we wanted to just make sure to take that just as seriously as we're taking cleaning the surfaces.
Absolutely. And we've also, made sure hallways and even places like the field house are going to, be impacted and affected by this air filtration system. We've also changed our patterns for how we move throughout the building during the day. We want to maintain as much social distancing as possible. We know that part of that is about creating less traffic in the hallways, but also about being mindful about how we travel. So things like keeping right in the hallways. We've designated certain stairwells for up traffic and certain stairwells for down traffic, so that everybody's moving in the same directions, which is again, we know, very, very effective, and will help us to minimize crowds in specific places and bottlenecks in specific places. We're also, because students can only go to their lockers at the beginning of the day, at their lunch period, and at the end of the day, it will decrease the locker traffic, which will keep kids moving through the hallway, less opportunity to congregate, and that type of thing. Again, we've made sure every classroom is socially distanced. The way that our plan for on-campus instruction works and why it works is twofold. One is Aquinas actually has a school population that is significantly smaller than a school population in most of the public school districts that you're seeing right now that are using a hybrid. So, for example, Fairport High School, Webster High School, Greece Olympia High School have upwards of 12, 14, 16, almost 1,800 students at Fairport in their high school. So if they are using the hybrid, half of those students are in the building. When Aquinas has all of our students here, we're around 700. So our everyone here population is equal to or smaller than the population in some of these other high schools where only half the students are going. And our footprint is relatively the same size. So at least the number of usable classrooms is the same size. So we really are able to effectively have our students here and still maintain all the distancing and the environment that we really believe can be safe and healthy for everybody. But part of that will mean that sometimes students will need to go to an overflow location for a class. So I'll use the example of I have a class that has room for 15 students in it, and there are 20 students scheduled to be in that period. So each day, then, 5 students would, instead of attending that class in the classroom, move to our overflow location and be in the overflow room where they would be able to access live instruction with their teacher, with all the rest of their classmates using Microsoft Teams and be there virtually. But because they're in the building, they also have in-person access with that teacher throughout the day. If there are questions, if there are other things to follow up on, and they also have the benefit, because our plan is synchronous, they have the benefit of being able to be in that classroom with that teacher as questions are being asked in real time. If they raise their hand, they can be called on by the teacher in real time, have their questions answered. And that would play true also for the students who are on distance learning. They have that option. The other piece is that even if a student is in the overflow room, they would not necessarily be in the overflow room for a particular period more than once, maybe twice in a 5-day period. Rarely twice in a 5-day period. Mr. Mooney and Mr. Maniosi have done a great job of creating a schedule where that works really effectively for students. Okay, transportation. Transportation for all of our families is provided by your public school district. I have had the opportunity to speak to all of our districts over the course of the last couple weeks. Everybody is planning to provide transportation to Aquinas 5 days a week. They do know that we're in session every day of the week, but I am still asking families, please reach out to your school district and make sure that if you're planning to use the bus, that they are aware that you go to Aquinas and that you're going to be needing the bus each day. It's better safe than sorry for that, and that they're aware of when we start school, and that our first day is September 8th, just so that you know that they're and that they're set up for transporting when we have our first day of school. Athletics and activities. So first and foremost, we know that a really important part of school for every child is oftentimes all the reasons that they have that are not being in class with their teacher. It's the after-school activities, the clubs, the sports that they're involved in. We know that that's really important. All of our clubs and activities are slated to start running, and while it may be virtual to begin the year, they do intend to start. Student government's been working to plan all kinds of special events and even pep assemblies that we can do in the stadium, and having all kinds of like homecoming, spirit days, and those sorts of things. But things like video game club being able to meet and improv club being able to meet. As for athletics is not within our control as a school. Athletics is actually under the umbrella of the New York State Education Department and the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. At this time, there are no athletics allowed. The state is not slated to make a determination about athletics until September 21st. They said that they would make a decision by that date if they would consider athletics during the fall season. If on September 21st they determine that they're not going to have athletics in the fall, they will not revisit that until at least January. And again, that's outside of our control. Okay. As for performance-based activities, dance, band, theater, the Performing Arts Department has been working very closely on creating innovative ways for us to make sure that students have those opportunities and those outlets. Students who take music and dance during the school day will have those classes. Band and choir will be a little bit different. They have to have that 12-foot distancing. It's really difficult to do. They're going to do a lot of it as a flipped type classroom where they will learn about the theory and the musicology during the class period, and then at home use Flipgrid and other things to actually play their instruments. We will be able to do music lessons in person in school because they can be in small groups of 2 or 3 where they can be 15 feet apart for those with the teacher. Dance classes were going to be taking place in our gym where they can spread out and be 12 to 15 feet apart for dancing, be able to have those classes. For phys ed and for dance, students will not be changing their clothes because right now part of the guidance from the state is that there's no access to locker rooms and changing areas.
Unless it changes.
And so, right, unless it changes, that could all change, right? We've been learning that we think we know what we're doing, and then all the rules change, and so we adapt.
That does happen.
That does happen. Food service, we're asking everybody to bring their lunch. We also know that sometimes that doesn't happen for whatever reason. It's not possible in a day. We will have grab-and-go meals each day for students. They do have to, pay for them just like they pay for their lunch. Go through the line, use their My School Bucks account, and there will be various things every day. There's not a great deal of choice in the grab-and-go. There'll be pre-packaged lunches with drinks. There is an opportunity for all students, though, to buy drinks every day. They don't have to bring a drink if they don't want to, and we'll have things like cookies as well, because we know that that's a really important part. So if you're choosing the opting into the distance learning piece, just some quick notes about that. A student or a family that's choosing distance learning, and we're asking you to let us know as soon as possible. We also know that things happen. A family can choose distance learning at any point during a marking period. However, once you choose distance learning, you cannot come back into the building until the end of the marking period. So if you're choosing distance learning for the first quarter, a student would be out until about November 12th or 16th. At that time, you could choose to come back and be in person, or you could choose to stay out. A student may be in school, for the first 3 or 4 weeks of school, and then decide, what, this isn't for me, I want to choose distance learning. If they do that, they have to stay out until the end of the first marking period. Again, if our hybrid plan exists as a contingency, we would only go to this plan if we're required to use this plan by the health department. We are not currently required to do that. So we do not intend to be using this. If we do, we will separate students by zip code so that we're keeping students together for transportation reasons, carpooling reasons. Students in the same neighborhoods and those sort of things would be at Aquinas together instead of just saying, okay, alphabet comes. The first 4 days of school we are doing a slowed start. We're doing a slowed start by alphabet. A through K on Tuesday, September 8th, L through Z on Wednesday, September 9th, A through K on Thursday, September 10th, L through Z on Friday, September 11th. We're doing that because we want to be able to have small groups of students in the building as we go through learning our new routines, getting used to what it's going to be like, allowing everybody to acclimate to the differences in the school environment and what the day is going to feel like before we start with everybody here on the 14th.
Can you talk about textbooks and locker
Yep,
setup?
so that's what I was going to say. That's the end of our sort of formal presentation, and I'll start doing questions. Textbooks and lockers, is that the question?
Locker setup, and then also getting textbooks.
Okay.
And then I'll talk about laptops.
Yeah.
I'll talk about there's a lot of questions. There's a couple questions about laptops.
So locker setup, we will build days in on the first 2 days of school for locker setup. When students are here in those limited access days. Parents will not have access to the building to help students with locker setup. But students will be able to bring their stuff in on their first day of school. They'll have time to set up their locker. If students want to bring things, new students are here on October 1st. If they want, or I'm sorry, October 1st, are here on September 1st. If they want to bring stuff to set up their lockers, they can do that, but there's not going to be specific time in the day for locker setup. There will be time to go to their lockers and time to learn how to open their locker and make sure that they feel comfortable about where it is and how to use it, but not specific time to do so locker setup. Because students can only go to their lockers 3 times a day, there's not as much required for locker setup, maybe a set of shelves or something like that, but they're not going to be spending much time at their lockers. Supplies, we are amending our supply list, and we will be sending amendments out over the next 2 Mondays in my e-blast. If you've gone school shopping for supplies, you are way more organized than I am. Congratulations. I'm sorry if you've bought things that now I'm going to tell you that you don't need. Hopefully you'll be able to return them. But students do not need binders for any classes. We have removed binders completely. Now that we've gone to one-to-one with laptops, there is very little need for students to have loose papers. Folders are still a great idea because they're a great way to teach kids organization. Notebooks, here's what I'll say about notebooks. You know your child better than anyone. I could tell you that I am lost without a notebook. I am old. So I cannot take notes on a computer. I have to use a pen and paper. My daughter, who is 17, thinks that this is completely archaic and cannot take notes if she doesn't use a laptop. So you know your child. Your child is going to have a laptop, and you're going to need to choose what works best for you and your family. They have backpacks with them, so they'll be able to carry their laptops around with them all day. What I will say about laptops, and Dr. Cook will get into this a little more, but what I will tell you, students will not have the ability to charge their laptops in school during the day. So it is really important that they charge their laptops at home before they come to school so that they can use them throughout the day. They will hold a charge easily for the whole school day. My laptop, which I use all the time for streaming and everything else, will hold a charge for a solid 48 hours. But don't gamble. Have them charge their laptops at home. We also are not going to provide protective cases for the laptops. The laptops we bought are pretty durable. But if again, you know your child better than anybody else, I will be buying a Gator case for my son's laptop because I know him. I love him, but I also know that that's probably going to be a good idea. And it's not like I'm not investing in something. We're also going to ask every family to sign an agreement for the loan of laptops. We will give you more details on that. We're still working out the details on that. And we'll offer you an insurance protection plan for the laptop. The insurance plan will cost about $70, and it will cover your laptop for just about everything. So again, we'll make sure that we give you all the details about what the insurance covers, but I always use the example of put the laptop on the roof of the car, back out of the driveway, and you forgot it was there. We know it will cover that kind of breakage. It's worth the $70. If you don't take the insurance, you will be responsible for the replacement of the laptop at the full cost. And I'm going to let Dr. Cook talk about a little bit more about laptops.
Yeah, so obviously this is Aquinas' first go around with one-to-one technology. We've typically just used what we've had in the school, but we realize that there's going to be some challenges presented to students as we're going to have pretty much everything turned in electronically. We're not going to have passing of papers. And so every student grades 6 through 12 will be issued a Dell Latitude 5400 laptop. I'll send a link to information about the laptop in the chat bar in just a second. It is 14 inches, so if you're buying a protective case elsewhere, you could start looking for a 14-inch laptop protective sleeve. It's a pretty standard laptop in terms of functionality, but the one feature I do like about it for safety is it does have a web camera for if a student wanted to log into a class that way, but it has a slider on there, so when they're at home, they're just working, they could just close the slider so the web camera's essentially off, or people can't see using the web camera. They're very nice laptop devices. They are pretty sturdy. They're pretty solid. But again, it's a Dell Latitude 5400, and each student will get those. They'll be barcoded by the school. It'll be signed out just like a textbook. So we just expect the same care that they demonstrate for that.
We will be communicating soon how laptop pickup and textbook. They will not get textbooks until the first week of school. We're going to distribute textbooks, during that period of time. Some classes will have textbooks, and some classes will be using, virtual materials in place of a textbook. So it just depends right now on the class, and we're slowly implementing that, and more information about that will come shortly. The other piece about laptops is
required. Oh, sorry, you can say that about the required use of school one.
Yes, we are requiring that students use the school laptop. The reason for that is in the spring when we were doing distance learning, we learned a lot about all the different technology that exists, and we in talking to our parents in our town hall meetings, and in talking in getting survey data back from parents, having a single platform makes a huge difference because our teachers understand what a child is seeing because they know what platform the student is working on, and children will be able to adapt much more quickly to these are how I access the programs, and when I access this program, this is where everything is on this device. So it will help us to manage and to troubleshoot in their learning when they're using their laptops. It will help teachers in creating lessons that will be adaptable and using technology that will be easily accessible on the laptops. And it also provides us with an additional layer of security. Again, safety is really important to us. Every computer is using a security net that's called GoGuardian. If you want to check it out, you can. Basically, it is a cloud-based security measure that will allow us to control what your children have access to when they're using the laptop. Even when they're at home, Aquinas will control what they have access to through their laptop. And if they make decisions to try to explore other things that we would all wish that they didn't explore, in fact, Mr. Higgins will get a notification that Dr. Cook was on the internet trying to access Twitter at 1:30 in the morning, and he wasn't supposed to do that. And he wouldn't be able to access it through GoGuardian, but we would also then know what's happening. So that protects Aquinas, and that protects your children as well, and allows us to really tailor the use of the laptop towards the things that are necessary for their education and away from things that can be distractions. So that's part of how the device is going to work. Other questions?
Yeah, we got a good number building up.
Okay.
Just talk about the first couple days of school.
Yep.
In terms of kids who are not here, not joining.
Yes. So.
And then distance learning kids.
Yeah.
Do they
So
join?
right. So the first day of school, half the students are here. Students that are not required to be in school that day just have a day off. There's no requirement for them to try to log in or anything like that. A student who is on distance learning should log in and attend school on the day that they're slated for attendance. So if Dr. Cook were distance learning and had opted in for distance learning, he would be logging in on the first day for his full day of school as distance learning and attending all the different classes and following our schedule for that day. If I were attending school in person, I would come on the second day of school and I go through my my schedule and through the things that are happening that day, but I would not have any obligations to log in on the 2 days that I'm not supposed to be here. That's only for the first week of school. That's only while we start to get used to things and try to ease everyone's anxiety. On the 14th, we will go full on with everybody being in school or in distance learning and logging in every day or being in person. If you're sick, but you're supposed to be on campus, you should call the school and say, hey, we're sick. If you're sick, if you have symptoms, right, we want you to stay home if you're exhibiting symptoms that are unhealthy. If you have a cough or a really runny nose and a cold, but you're actually on a regular day, you would have gone to school, we want you to stay home and attend school virtually if you're able, right? And then once you have been symptom-free for 72 hours, come back to school, and that's fine with us, right? If you're on distance learning and you're sick, and you're truly sick and you need to take a day to get better, call the school and let us know that you're actually not going to be attending today. Because teachers are going to be taking attendance every day and every class period. We want to be able to keep track of that. And it helps us to manage that if everybody's doing that. Okay? But the other, and I've said this before, it also means we don't have to have any snow days, right? Because everybody's got the technology to be virtual. And so if we have a day where the weather says we can't come to school, I told the class of 2020 when they graduated that they were going to be the last school in Aquinas, the last class in Aquinas history to have a snow day. So they also have that. Besides being the class that had the COVID graduation, they got all the snow days. So you don't have to share that with your children now. You can wait.
Yeah, hold that one for a good day. Just a couple other questions.
Yep.
I've been answering some.
Okay.
You might just want to say schedules. Did we talk about that already?
So schedules, they will receive their schedules electronically, and we will release schedules through the parent-student portal around the 24th of August. We're working next week. The counselors are here all week to finish up the details with schedules, and then they will be accessible to all of your children. New students will learn how to access the portal and access their schedule at new student orientation on September 1st. If you are opting in for distance learning, the orientation for distance learning will be Friday, September 4th. And we'll walk everybody through all the pieces of distance learning and how that's going to happen. And they'll also have access to their schedules then.
Okay. I'm going to be sending a link in here just to a page on Amazon, just a couple ideas for like what a laptop protector looks like if you're unable to find
And
those.
and I'll have Dr. Cook also will include that in my e-blast as well.
Okay.
Other questions?
I'm looking right now. Do we contact guidance counselor if we need scheduled changes?
Yeah, so if there are changes to the schedule that are necessary, the student should reach out to their counselor, and the counselor will set up an appointment with them to make schedule changes. Okay, but it should be the student reaching out to the counselor.
Do students have to sign up for new student orientation if they're a new student?
So new students should already have signed up for new student orientation. If you have not, I believe there will be a communication coming from the Ms. Caulfell's or Mr. Sutton in the enrollment office, and I will clarify that.
When will they get locker assignments?
So locker assignments will, for returning students, they'll find out where their lockers are with their schedule. Their locker is number and stuff will be right on their schedule. It's right on there when they log in.
Time for new student orientation again for someone. We had someone just register recently.
Yeah, new student orientation is 8 to noon on September 1st.
Okay. Another question about orientation. They might not have heard you say it. Just about sixth graders. Do sixth graders sign up for orientation?
Sixth graders are part of that new student orientation. The students are all in groups by grade level, and it's an opportunity for them to all get to know each other. We know all the sixth graders are here because all the sixth graders are new students. It's a beautiful thing. None of them have ever been to Aquinas before, so it's a good day for them to have the chance to know each other.
Question about how do we let school know which option we are choosing? So if you're choosing on campus and you've registered at Aquinas,
You don't have to do anything.
you don't have to do anything. If you want to do opt in to distance learning, there was a form that was sent out. I'm going to drop it in the chat box here.
Yep,
If you want to do
we'll
that.
put the link to the form for choosing distance learning. It is also, you can go to the Aquinas website, aquinas-institute.com/re-entry, and you will find there all those forms. Other questions?
Just questions about getting polos from the bookstore
So-
and when will the bookstore be open
Yeah.
for polos?
So the
review books?
bookstore will not be open for in-person at all. The link to the online store was in my e-blast that I sent on Monday, and I will make sure that the bookstore link is in our future e-blast. It's also on the website under quick links for the bookstore. Information about ordering polos is right there. When we have the masks, we'll also include that in the bookstore link. However, all of the pickup is curbside. There won't be any delivery of orders for polos for school. They'll be curbside, and the information about that, again, is also included in the bookstore link in the website.
Do you want to talk about
Distance, I see this pop up right now.
Yeah.
Distance learning students
No.
should be in uniform. So if you're choosing distance learning, there is not a requirement for students to be in dress code. What I will say, however, is there's a lot to be said for the routine of going to school every day. My son will tell you.
She goes, can we tell them this is a
You
requirement?
can absolutely tell them, and I'll tell you what, I'll back you up. I will tell you that all three of my children, including my daughter who was in college and home for the half of her spring semester, we got up every day and we got dressed like we were going to school. because I'm a firm believer in the more routine there is, the more it sets a tone for what's happening. So that's your call as a parent. It is not a requirement of Aquinas.
Got some more here. Will there be a Meet the Teacher night this year?
We are. There will be an opportunity for you to meet teachers and understand about what's happening in our curriculum. I will be very honest with you. That's been secondary to us getting the school up and running, so we don't have all the details on that yet, but we will be sharing them soon. It will likely be virtual and will probably be spread out over more than one night, just so that we can accommodate all the parents.
What's the earliest time for drop-off?
Students,
maybe talk about drop-off.
Yeah, so drop-off and pick-up. So students cannot be dropped off or will not have access to the building before 7:15 in the morning. There's just no way for us to accommodate all the screening and have all the protocols and safety measures in place before 7:15 in the morning every day. Our faculty does not have access to the building until at least 7 o'clock. So in terms of getting everybody here and being set up to do that, anybody who arrives at school before that time will not even they'll be outside. We just cannot accommodate it with the screening protocols that are necessary. At the end of the day, we're going to have a staggered dismissal. Students who ride the bus will be dismissed right at 2:44, and then students who are picked up will be dismissed after that. If you're
be less kids, though.
Right, if you're planning to pick your child up, you do not need to be here until 2:55, because those students will be sitting in their last period class, because it's important that we allow for decreased amount of traffic in the hallways and also bottlenecks at the door getting out of the school. If and when we have activities and athletics on campus, those students would actually be dismissed at 3 o'clock. At this time, there are no on-campus after-school activities. So every student needs to be off campus not later than 3:30 in the afternoon. Ideally, everybody is picked up by 3 o'clock, because it's really important that we have the time to clean and sanitize the entire facility, and we can't do that effectively when we have students and people in the building. And until we have a handle on exactly how long that's going to take with a school day in place, it's really difficult for us to allow for anybody to be here at the end of the day.
What if Monroe County Schools push back their start date?
That could impact transportation for your child. That's why I say it's really important to touch base with your school's district. Our start date will remain September 8th. We will be in session September 8th in that week on that slow start schedule, and everybody in session on the 14th.
I already talked about bookstore. You want to just talk about, like, if a student tests positive for COVID and...
Yeah, so if a student tests positive, the protocol is that student will be, we will be notified by the Department of Health. We will be transparent with all of the families and with our Aquinas community about what we know and about what the directions we've been given from the Department of Health are in regard to our next steps. It could be that portions of the community are asked to isolate or to be tested. It also could be that for some reason we have to move to distance learning for a short period of time, or that that there are other impacts or no impact. It's also important for you to understand that if a child tests positive, that the Department of Health could be requiring the entire household of that child to quarantine or isolate, not just the child. So that is important for everybody to know. Again, I don't want to speculate that I have the answers to that. Those are decisions that are going to be made by Dr. Mendoza and his team at the health department. They will also conduct all the contact tracing.
Just a question about sixth graders. Will sixth graders get their schedule before orientation on 9/1 or
No, they will get their schedule on 9/1 at orientation. And really for sixth grade, they're really in self-contained pods. So if you are in Mrs. Clark's sixth grade, you will have ELA at one time a day and math at one time a day and social studies at one time a day. But their schedule is much more self-contained than they don't have 8 teachers like the 7th through 12th graders do. So it's a little bit easier to handle. And we really work on the cohesiveness of the 6th grade team together.
There's a question just about, and it's private, but I do want to share it because I think it's important. So with the temperature scanners, we've actually purchased 2 for the student entry and 1 for faculty and staff entry. So there's 2 separate spaces where students are going to enter, and then another space where faculty and staff are going to enter. Once we get in a rhythm, and this is why we're also having that week where we're having a staggered slow start, is because once students understand how to do it, it's very easy and it'll go very fast. So the system itself, if people know what they're doing, it could scan 15 people in a minute. And so once we get in a rhythm of doing it, it'll move pretty quick. And with the 2 separate spaces, we will have decals on the ground for where students will stand to make sure that they're keeping the distance. We also have heard in our other groups that many families may be dropping students off instead of using transportation. So we'll find ways to best prepare that, but we will do everything we can not to have any kind of backup leading into the building.
Yeah, I will say, I know that times are different and everything in our sort of our way of life has somehow seems strangely familiar, but we have a lot of data on arrival times just from how it's worked in past years. And because students ride the bus and because families all move at different speeds, the parking lot seems backed up, and we understand that, but the actual trickle of students into the building is very reasonable and controlled. There is a mad rush, of course, at 7:55 in the morning, but for the most part, we don't have 30, 40, 50 people all coming through the door at one time. We have groups, much smaller groups of students coming through the door. So there may be a little bit of a bottleneck to get into the school at the beginning of the day, but we believe that it'll be very manageable. Now I also am asking for everybody's patience and understanding, because everything in our plan looks really good on paper, and we believe that we've tried to address every scenario that we possibly can. We also know that we have not. And so when we add people to the mix, when we add children to the mix, we know that we're going to have some adapting and some adjusting and some learning to do. And so we're asking for your patience. We're also asking for you to communicate with us about your experience, because we can use that information so that we can make the adjustments again to make this as easy as possible for everybody. But I know for a fact, as wonderful as I can make it all sound, that once we throw teenagers into the mix, we're going to have to adjust and adapt, and we're ready for that. We are ready for that.
Question just about seniors. So like special events for seniors. Is that just on hold, or what are we going to try and do?
We're really committed to making sure that our seniors have a great senior year and a great senior experience. The special events that we would ordinarily have during a senior year, we anticipate we will still be able to do. One thing is for sure, we've learned how to do graduation during a pandemic, and we had incredibly good feedback from all of our families on the graduation experience. That's very far away, and so it's hard to speculate what that'll be like. But things like homecoming and pep rallies and spirit weeks and senior shirts and senior recognitions and senior masses and those kinds of things, we're prepared to move forward with those. They may feel a little bit different to begin with, but at the end, but we know that we'll be able to make them very special. We intend to hold to that.
Just trying to sort through some of this. We just want to talk about like transitions, and so a couple things with the hallways and the stairways. So actually, when Ted and I went here a long time ago, the stairs were on the ends are upstairs, and on the middle were downstairs. So we're going to be switching back to that format. So if students are going to go upstairs, they're going to use the outer stairways, and if they're going to go downstairs, they're going to use the middle stairways. We're going to try to have flow in the hallways, obviously staying to the right. And really that first week, first couple weeks really, is just going over personal responsibility, respect for others, keeping distance. There are going to be people that have different comfort levels, obviously, with being back in an environment like this. We'll have some students who have worked at Wegmans since March and, have had the experience of being around lots of other people. And we'll have other students that really have not left the house much. So, it's trying to communicate that understanding to our students. I myself, I have 2 young girls. And so trying to communicate that everyone that a student's coming into contact with has other people that they're also responsible for when they leave the school environment, and just trying to teach that personal sense of responsibility and distancing. So it definitely will be a teaching situation for us. So that's kind of what we're thinking from a transition.
And we've put some provisions in place. We're going to extend our passing time so that it will allow for students to stretch out in the hallways. Again, by not going to their lockers between periods, there's a lot less need for them to sort of hang out and for them to be stopping and starting and being next to each other in the same ways. We also know I have a 12-year-old son who could take 45 minutes to walk from his bedroom to the bathroom across the hallway, and he could also take 6 seconds to walk half a block down the street. So we do know that we're part of it from our perspective is our presence and the presence of other in the administration and stuff to help start to manage what that will look like so that we can start to set a routine. And what I can promise you is that it's going to be different and it's going to feel different, but at the end of the day, it's going to be Aquinas, and we're going to be very focused on our community and how we interact.
Video on that one. Can you mute the video? Is there a way to do that? No. Okay. Other questions. So just a question about like the accuracy of the temperature scanner. I think it's highly accurate. There was a question just about like if in the winter a child walked to school. We have a training actually next week with the company that provided the devices, so I'll just ask that question. But we were actually asking the question, if we had it in the vestibule, which gets cold anyway, if it would still be accurate, and they were pretty definitive
that it would be,
that the machine would be accurate even if there was cold weather around it, right, for the pulse of the person. But I'll ask the question about the pulse of the person.
So these machines are designed for pretty industrial use. They're being used at stadiums and other places like that, and one of the reasons that we chose was because they can also be portable, and we can use them if we do move to events that are in our stadium. We could still put the protocol in place. There is, and when we first went to test them, we kind of messed around with heating up our wrist, and did it make a difference, or put a cold pack on your wrist, did it really make a difference? And the fact of the matter is, it really didn't. The machine continued to be accurate.
It would be, from what we've been told, it would be very difficult for anyone really to elevate their temperature above 100 degrees,
Okay.
by physically heating up their wrist, and or bring it down enough.
Cool themselves off if they have a fever.
Yeah,
if you have a fever, you have a fever, and it's going to pretty much be able to determine that. But that is also a reason we have secondary screening. If you get a false positive, if you show up abnormal, we're gonna send you to a secondary screening. And if you same as because we're choosing randomly, we'll have an additional net where we're gathering that extra data. At this time, I just want to say it's 6:15. We've been about an hour and 15 minutes. I know that your time is very valuable. I want to say thank you very much. I want to say thank you for your support. I want to say thank you for your patience. I want to say thank you for your questions and your concerns. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your children with us. I also want to tell you that I want you to know that you can reach out to me at any time. If you have additional concerns or questions, we're happy to answer them for you. I'm not saying that we're going to go if there are other questions that people feel are really important, and I will answer them. But I did want to say I know people have things to do, and we're in dinner hour as well.
Yeah, if I missed your question for whatever reason, please feel free to type it again. But thank you very much for your kind messages. It's very nice to read through. But if you have another question, or if you had a question earlier and for some reason I missed it, please feel free to type it in again and we'll address it. But anyone else that wants to step off, please feel free to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.